Now, Audley Harrison will take on David Haye on Sky Box Office on November the 13th for the WBA heavyweight title. He's in training in East London later today in the very gym where once training as an amateur, the Repton Boxing Club. We can cross there live now to our reporter Roger Clark. Roger, what's happening there this morning?
Yes, welcome along to the Repton Club, right in the heart of the East End, famous old boxing club established way back in 1884. And you need only look around the place just to see that this place is absolutely steeped in boxing history. They've produced a long line of quality amateur fighters, none more so, of course, than Audley Harrison, who you can see up there on the wall. And of course he'll be back in here a little later on speaking to us live and going through a bit of a workout session ahead of his world title fight against David Haye on November the 13th. But it was boxing out of here as an amateur that he won the British title, he won the Commonwealth gold medal and ultimately the Olympic gold medal in Sydney 10 years ago. And now 10 years on, he gets his shot at the world title. And one man who's been heavily instrumental in getting him that shot at the world title is Eddie Hearn, who's going to speak to us live now here on Sky Sports News. Now, Eddie, thank you very much for joining us. And clock is ticking, less than a couple of weeks away now. And how have the preparations been going?
Preparations have gone absolutely perfectly. You know, he's spent a lot of time out in Big Bear. We were out there last week. Preparation's great, confidence is fine, and you know he fancies a job coming back here to probably the spiritual home of boxing, the place where he grew up and started his dream, started his journey, and fitting that he should be back here today to prepare for his world title shot.
It's not that long ago that people were looking at Audley Harrison and thinking, well, where does he go now? He looked like his chance had perhaps passed him by. He couldn't get a fight. He'd lost 4 in 8. He went through a stretch where he lost 4 in 8. Just tell us how you got involved and how we've come to this, that you know, within a space of a couple of fights, he's fighting for the world title.
Well, it was a chance meeting. For people who don't know, Audley's a keen and very accomplished poker player. I'd like to say the same about myself, but we were both at the World Series of Poker. We do a lot of poker at Matchroom. And luck would have it that we drew the same table in the $10,000 main event there. And a lot of people had told me Audley Harrison was in town, and I was keen to get him into our prize fighter tournament, you know, purely from a commercial perspective, not really thinking about the journey that we might take together. And when I met him, I was really sort of overwhelmed by his burning desire to still be a champion. And you know, I've been an Audley Harrison critic, as many have. But when someone's got that desire and that ambition and that look in their eye, it's very difficult to rein them back. And, you know, I took to him, you know, and I believed in him. And he's a great talker. He has you believe in him. But he came over for a prize fighter, you know, and every fight that we've had with Audley has been his last chance. So the pressure's been massive, you know, especially fighting against prize fighter 3-minute rounds where it's every fighter's World Cup final. You know, Audley went in there and he won his first 2 fights and he had to knock the guy out coming from behind Coleman Barrett to win prize fighter. Prize fighter, as it is at the moment, you know, the hottest thing in boxing, gives you the chance to progress to bigger things. We made the European title fight, and all kinds of things have happened along this journey that makes me feel that he's going to complete the dream and beat David Haye. And we were due to fight Albert Sosnowski, who then got the call up to fight Vitaly Klitschko. Michael Sprott then came in to replace him, who'd beaten Audley before, knocked him spark out cold. And in the 3rd round, everything's going really well. And then Audley ruptures his pectoral muscle and fights with one hand, and slowly, round by round, I'm sitting there with my old man and just thinking, oh, well, you know, it was a good crack. We thought we might have a chance here, but the dream's over. And a minute left, he knocked Michael Sprott cold out. And here we are today. It's a great story. It's a great comeback. You know, like I say, a year ago, Audley Harrison had nowhere to go. And through prize fighter, but more importantly through his determination and his dreams, he's one step away from the heavyweight title.
I saw some quotes from you recently, and you were saying that Audley said he's been overwhelmed by some of the support he's been getting from the British public. Are you noticing a real groundswell of people getting behind him for this fight?
Unbelievable, you know. I mean, this is a guy who all he's ever had is a dream to be heavyweight champion of the world, you know. He won a gold for this country in the Olympics, and as soon as he turned pro, he was booed. We're a strange kind, aren't we? I mean, I don't know what that is about the British public. And all of a sudden, he's fallen, he's been battered to the floor. No one's given him an ounce of credit ever, and maybe he hasn't deserved it. But he's kept on getting up, fighting, climbing that mountain. And I think now the British public are saying, you know what, Audley Harrison's a good guy. He's just a man from the street with a dream to be heavyweight champion. And you can't take that away from him. I think now David Haye's coming across so badly. His ego's way out of control. I mean, I read yesterday in the Sunday paper that he's going to be the biggest new star in Hollywood that the UK's ever seen. I mean, he calls Audley Harrison deluded. I think he's got something to answer for there. But, I think Haye is where Audley was 10 years ago, signed a 7-figure contract with the BBC, and Audley admits he's made huge mistakes. His ego was out of control, but he's very happy, he's comfortable with himself and in his life, and he's in my mind, he's a favourite to win this fight.
And my colleague at Sky Sports News, Craig Slater, spent some time with Audley out in Big Bear, and we got a real insight there into Audley as a person, as a family man as well. Do you feel that he's changed his personality, or has he been misunderstood? Because he said, straight away he was booed even though he'd won an Olympic gold medal.
I think he's just grown up. He's, like I say, he's happily married with a beautiful daughter, lives out in America now, he's humble. I think he's experienced so many down times in his life that he's had to go through that to really find himself and realise what he wants to achieve. He's never given up. The worst thing that can happen to any fighter is all of a sudden they start making a load of money. It's very difficult for someone to turn pro with 7 figures in the bank. And Audley, he'll hold his hands up. He made some mistakes, but he's never ever given up. He's never lost sight of the dream, and I think that's something that the British public have got to embrace now and say, you know what, we love an underdog. Fair play to this guy. Let's get on the bandwagon.
You mentioned some of the things that David Haye said in the build-up to this fight. Do you feel that because of what he's been saying, Audley is now sort of the good guy, the guy who was booed before, is now being cast as the good guy in this fight?
Well, I always felt that the wind of change would mean that Audley would receive more and more support as the build-up went on. But David's really just sort of handed us a golden lifeline in that some of the things he's been saying, they don't need to be repeated, but they're wrong and they're just not right to be said in front of a build-up to a boxing man. 2 men getting in the ring, of which you have to have great respect for them. Audley has big respect for David Haye. David Haye has no respect for Audley Harrison. And I think there's more of a I think David is envious of Audley because at the end of the day, this fight is not about David Haye. This fight is about Audley Harrison. Audley Harrison is a bigger name in the UK than David Haye. Not in boxing circles, but outside of the boxing and sporting fraternity, Audley Harrison is a bigger name than David Haye, and that eats away at David Haye, and I don't think he can handle that. This isn't about David Haye, this fight. This is about Audley Harrison, and David Haye is just another chapter in the Audley Harrison story.
For you personally, of course, you're involved in prize fighting, you're involved in other sports as well, but how has this been? A world heavyweight title fight. How's this been to be involved in?
Listen, I've been around boxing for over 20 years. I grew up with my dad promoting Eubank, Ben, Collins, Lennox Lewis, Nazim Hamed. Seen some great times, and that was when real boxing was at a real boom time. And we've seen, I think boxing's back on the way up now. But a year ago, when I made the call to my old man and told him that, look, we're going to give Audley Harrison a go here. He's going to win prize fighter. He's going to win the European title shot, and then he's going to knock David Haye out. And he laughed at me and he said, good luck with that, you're on your own. And I saw him yesterday on Sunday lunch and I said, keep watching. And he's not an Audley Harrison fan, but he believes as well that destiny is going to get him over the line.
And the story, of course, doesn't end here, because it could be that November the 13th, Audley Harrison is the champion of the world. Are you ready behind the scenes, looking at perhaps what happens next?
Yeah, no one in the camp is looking past November the 13th. All that is on anyone's mind is that fight. Whatever happens after that, we'll go away and sit down. We've got a clause in our contract that means we'd have to have a rematch with David Haye. That's fine. Once we beat him once, we know we can beat him twice. But heavyweight boxing is all about manoeuvring. That's why I respect David Haye and I respect Adam Booth for what they've done. They've slipped and slide all around, taking the easy way to the heavyweight title. They fought Nikolai Valuev, who, let's be honest, is a circus act. Not a great fighter. He nearly lost that fight. He ran like a thief in the night for 12 rounds, but that's the tactic they took. They fought John Ruiz, who came over to retire. People got to realise David Haye has never been tested as a heavyweight. So Audley Harrison is a big test for him, and I think that the Haye camp, they decided to duck Klitschko like they always do. Are they in it for the right reasons? Do they want to create a legacy in the sport? If you want to create a legacy, surely you fight the very best and you want to unify the titles. So what? They might be arguing over £200,000 or £300,000 when they're making 5 or 6 million each. So maybe I think David's in the game for all the wrong reasons. The money, the ego, whatever. Audley's just got one dream, to be heavyweight champion of the world, and that's all he's after. We can't look no further at the moment.
And I have to ask you for a prediction. You're obviously backing Audley to win the fight. Is it going to be a 12-rounder, tactics winning through, or do you think that he's got the power to knock David Haye out?
It's heavyweight boxing. It's hard to predict. All I can say is that Audley Harrison will give David Haye one hell of a fight. He is, if you could imagine how much something in your life when you've wanted something so badly, times that by 100, and you're probably not even as close as you are to how badly Audley Harrison wants to win this fight. That is why it's going to be a great fight, the greatest fight the British public have seen in a long time. The hype is going to be built up over the next 2 weeks. But all I can tell you is that our man has got a burning desire to win this fight, and he will fight David Haye every second, every minute of every round.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us there, Eddie Hearn, there, Audley Harrison's promoter. A little later on, we'll be hearing from Audley himself, and we'll see him in the ring as he continues his preparation for that huge fight against David Haye on November the 13th.
Thank you, Roger. What a boxing club that is. History all over the wall there. All those pictures. Good to hear from Eddie Hearn. And history, new chapter will be written. Big fight, week Saturday. David Haye taking on Audley Harrison in Manchester. Coverage gets underway from 8 p.m. on Sky Box Office HD. For more information, please call 08442 410 888.